How do I sound?
Sounds fine.
Okay. Here are the difficulties. I'm not sure how good this internet connection is going to be, and there's a wall unit air conditioner in this room.
That's all right. We'll work through it.
And the third thing is, like, in about 15 minutes, I'm going to get a call that I know I'm going to want to take because I haven't seen my girlfriend in a few days.
No problem at all.
Do you think you want to record an intro and some bytes?
Yeah, well, I figured I would go through those pretty quick, and then just a overview of which topic you want to go into to kind of think about in between the two segments. Sounds good.
Okay. You're okay with taking a break in about 15 minutes?
Oh, sure.
I appreciate that.
All right, so tonight's format will be a little bit different. We're going to try to be a bit more concise since one of us is not actually at home at the moment. But I figured we had a couple of quick bites to get through, and then I'm going to kind of toss it to you for a rolling the roulette wheel, if you will, and letting me know which topic you want to go into. Does that sound good?
It does sound good.
Okay. Couple of things caught my eye for as far as bites go. One, yet again, ivermectin has been proven to be ineffective as a treatment. Surprise, surprise. Ars Technica actually had a decent little write-up. A couple of takeaways. At the end of the study that they reference, 52 of the 241 patients who received ivermectin had progressed to severe disease. 43 of the 249 patients who just received standard care progressed. So pretty equivalent. Actually worse out of the ivermectin group, if you want to be technical. And the other takeaway that was interesting, overall, 44 patients reported side effects, with 33 of them being in the ivermectin group.
Oh, wow.
I'd say that's pretty damning in and of itself. The side effects, the most common side effect was diarrhea. There were 5 cases of severe adverse reactions in the ivermectin group. 2 had heart attacks, 1 had severe anemia, and 1 developed hypovolemic shock as a result of severe diarrhea. The remaining severe reaction in the control group involved abdominal bleeding.
I'm not familiar with the type of shock you just mentioned.
I'm not either,
Okay.
and I didn't look it up. It's one of those things that I just kind of grabbed the bullet point because we've been fairly consistent all along in repeating the notion that you follow medical professional guidance. There is no medical professional citing use of ivermectin that is following any kind of study or anything else. The only reason there's a choice to attempt to use ivermectin is based on political nonsense. That's the big takeaway.
Yeah. I mean, it's statistically the same. No help at all, and you risk the chance. And you risk that chance of side effects that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Right, more likely to have a worse outcome, actually.
Yeah.
So that's the short and sweet bit on ivermectin. The other one is much more positive. There's been a suite of new studies focused on booster efficacy in the wake of Omicron, especially, and there seems to be a fairly strong consensus, and I'm pausing on my wording a little bit because it's still too early to tell.
Right.
But generally speaking, the new studies suggest several parts of the immune system can mount a sustained and potent response to any coronavirus variant following just 2 doses of a COVID vaccine. The booster makes it that much more significant.
That's really positive news.
Extremely positive. I felt so much better reading that, knowing that I mean, if you're following the news, obviously the number of variations with Omicron should not be a surprise. And knowing that the original 2-dose regimen provided some pretty strong benefits post concerns over waning efficacy or waning immunity, this just goes back to show these vaccines are ridiculously good at what they do. And I cannot stress enough, if you are not vaccinated, talk to your doctor, make a decision, an informed decision within the realm of medical guidance. That's the big push.
Yeah. I think that if you want to go down the rabbit hole and you really want to go further than speaking to a medical professional like your doctor, you can, there are resources, virologist resources. I mean, you can pick up some, you can pick up a textbook, a bio textbook, and you can read about how the immune system works. I remember having to go through, I never took any virology classes when I was in college. I was taking a biology track, but I do remember coming across this is, in physiology, this is how your immune system works, and it's just a really basic overview. And I recall that call I need to take is coming in.
No problem. We can pause there. I don't remember exactly where we were. Do you?
We were talking about the booster efficacy.
Okay.
And I was mentioning stuff about, we were talking, we talked about that, and then I was mentioning things about, if you want to get a basic understanding of how your immune system works, immunology, because this is more immunology than virology, and I didn't say that, but I'm saying it now, that this has more to do with immunology and how your body's immune system works. You can read just a college physiology, a section out of a college physiology book, just to kind of get a base understanding of how the immune system works. And what I wanted to say was, I guess this is this is the show now. Now I've ruined it. Anyway, is this a show now?
Sure.
Did we pause enough?
Well, I mean, I can splice it in pretty easily. It's not a big deal.
Okay. I'm all over the map tonight.
No
anyway, a basic understanding of how antibodies work and how T cells work, and I think there's a B cell. I can't remember, but I do remember reading at the beginning of the pandemic that people there were some very early studies, there were folks that were talking about the existence of T cells, which is, the existence of T cells for the first SARS virus from the early 2000s. So in 2020, so it would have been 2003, because in 2020, 17 years later, they're saying we still see a great T cell. I don't know if it's not. I don't think it's a T cell response, but T cell account of T cells for that SARS virus, that first SARS virus.
Yeah, so that was actually referenced in the Rs article, and I remember not too long ago I was reading an article that was talking specifically about the immune response. If I can find it easily, I will add it to the show notes, but the Rs article is worth perusing.
Yeah, Ars Technica. That's on brand for Ars Technica to be able to give this sort of larger overview of or a more holistic description of things surrounding the topic that they want to discuss.
It's really, I pause because I remember when Rs was seemingly nothing but hardware news, right?
Right.
Back in the tech days.
Yeah, I remember
They have
that.
come such a long way and have used the same attention to detail and general level of needing to be accurate, I think is how I would rephrase it, because they don't attempt to be accurate. They actually dig into the details and make sure before they publish that they're as accurate as they can possibly be. And I appreciate that immensely.
Me too. And it's such a good such a good place to get an article of something where you get this very holistic view of the topic at hand. So it's a good good publication. Yeah.
Speaking of ours, it's a quick side tangent. Did you see the article they ran on the person who was more or less a mastermind of the misinformation campaign by the Trump, not administration, because this was during the election, so Trump coalition maybe is a good way to put it.
Campaign.
Yeah, I'm fuzzy on exactly
committee.
What you would call it.
But it's a committee. Like, you know, like you
enough.
have committee to
but
re-elect
back during
the
the 2016 and ongoing time frame.
Did this have anything to do with the Cambridge Analytica mumbo jumbo?
So there would be some overlap, but the Cambridge stuff was not referenced in this article. I'll find it and I'll send you a link. I'll put it in the show notes too, because it's a pretty fascinating read, and it's interesting if you back it up a little bit and think about the proliferation of misinformation since that election. And I don't want to take us, off into the weeds on that one. I figure we should jump into a topic and have a show.
Well, before we do that, can we talk about? I feel like this is a really great place to talk about QAnon.
Sure. And to be fair, like, I'm willing to kind of delve into the mentality behind conspiracy theories as our topic as well. Like, the full transparency, I dropped a few topics just to choose from as placeholders because we had not had a chance to connect prior to this evening, prior to recording. So, like, we're completely open on however we want to take this conversation. This will be a classic conversation recording. How's that?
I like it. But you got me thinking, so, like, you got me thinking about the documentary, documentary on the words on HBO Max about QAnon.
Yeah, you've mentioned it a couple of times on the show. In all fairness, full disclosure, I still have not watched it, and it's just because I do not currently have an active subscription to HBO Max.
Oh, I totally understand. It's just been such an interesting. It's like one of those things. When I started, I was like, it's going to be an interesting, informative documentary, but it's one of those things. It's not quite as outlandish as Tiger King, but it's kind of out there. Like, the characters are sort of larger than life, much like Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin. And
I've never watched an episode of Tiger King either.
Just watch the trailer. That is all you need to watch to understand what's going on. It's like you watch.
I've heard all the references. Like, I get the gist for sure. It's just, as I hear more and more about it, it's like I just don't care to watch it. I get the premise. I understand. It's not my cup of tea.
Well, I mean, it is. Like, it's not normally my cup of tea, but it hit at just the right time. Like, it was in the beginning. It's like when everybody was locked down worldwide. It was released by, and I mean, it was just like. It was so big, like, it was so over the top that it was like a good distraction for a bit. And
yeah, I certainly get that. But go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, these people are. It's just like you watch that and you're like, how do people live this way? Like, there are people right now in the world living this life, and the key players in. I think it's called Into the Storm, about QAnon. I think that's the name of it. They kind of live maybe a slightly toned down version of that, but it didn't seem like a thing where it would have like as satisfactory an ending as it does, and it's just like, oh my God.
So I will defer to you on general knowledge explainer, etc. One thing I want to mention, it made me think about it. There was an article probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's another one that if I find it relatively easily, I'll add it to the show notes. If not, I'll add it for follow-up for a future show. But it was an article that was a person who had fully embraced and really delved into the QAnon theories, if you will. And after a couple of years, reached a point where they realized it more for what it was. Like there was a dissonance point, is a good way I'll put it, where basically everything that they thought they had embraced and really delved into didn't make sense anymore. And they started to pull back from it and pulled back a little further. And then the article was generally an exposition on how this person came to realize that over the past couple of years, they had gotten into a rabbit hole of theories and ideas and philosophies and all that were wrapped in this messaging that seemed to make sense viewed through the lens of emotion. And they were at a point where they realized it was just nonsense, and they were pulling themselves back away from it and trying to leverage that experience to say, hey, this is not what you think it is. This is definitely wrong. This is not a cohesive message. It preys on emotion, etc. And that may be a bit unfair, but because I have not delved into QAnon theories in general, I just kind of know of it from a distance. A couple of, we'll say a couple of people removed is a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
So I get the ideas and I get some of the general aspects that I've heard, but I don't know for sure that I understand what it means to be a believer of this. Like I don't even know what I would classify it as because I haven't looked that close at it. And so that's my long-winded way of saying, if you were to take this thing that people who don't know anything about it hear QAnon and at least have some general semblance of idea of what it's referring to, if you were to take this naming or label and try to describe it to somebody, how would you describe it? And give us just a solid kind of foundation from which to talk about it.
So I've seen memes that describe it as trailer park, like a trailer park cult, which is, I don't know.
I mean, that's certainly a visual that comes to mind when I hear of things, but I don't want to be overly dismissive either, because it's one of those things where, for me, it's complete absurdity.
I think trying to use that as a descriptor, it's disparaging, it's dismissive, and it's not inclusive enough. This is not just, you can't. This is not a thing that just white trash is glomming onto. It's a lot more prevalent than that. But it's kind of, it's a conspiracy theory. Like it's a form of far right conspiracy theory.
So would it help for me to describe what I know of it and then you correct me? So the things that I have consistently heard have been that the Democrats, quote unquote, are running a human/child trafficking ring out of pizza joints or parlors or other nondescript things where, for whatever reason, attaching some nomenclature to ordering from the menu equates to ordering a person in some fashion. Like, that's what I know of QAnon.
That's part of it. Like, so here's the crazy thing. None of what you said is untrue. It's just not all of it. So there's it's
like, that scares me, actually.
I know.
It's not just that.
So it's like there's a cabal of Satan-worshipping cannibalistic pedophiles, and they are running a global sex trafficking ring like child sex trafficking. And they are plotting, or at the time they were plotting against President Trump. And President Trump was waging a secret war against this cabal. That's the idea. And then there's this, their prophet is Q. And Q is this high-level government official with what he called Q clearance. And he had access to classified information involving Trump's administration and the opponents of the Trump administration. And he would post on like 4chan or 8chan, and it would be sort of like sometimes nonsensical. And then after, like he'd post something and then something else would happen, and it would, people would take this thing that happened and find a way to make it relate to the post that he put out there.
So let's pause for a second there.
Yeah.
Because I want to be very clear in a statement before we go forward. 4chan and other derivatives or other works that are similar are... this is a site that is designed for nothing more than provoking reaction. That's it. If you were an original purveyor of the content that was posted to 4chan, and by original purveyor, I mean sometime back in the 90s and later, everything was focused on getting a reaction or a laugh out of someone. That's it. There's no further greater purpose for posting anything to 4chan. If 4chan is your source of news or information, you're fucking loony. Like, I can't stress this enough. And I say this as someone who, back in the day, also frequently visited 4chan. It was a place where you could abstract everything you thought of as the ongoings of the day and just say, what are people coming up with to try to provoke a reaction? I'm bored and I want to see what twisted, defiled minds are posting on a message board that is by design not going to be there tomorrow.
Well, 8chan. So Q started on 4chan, and then he moved to 8chan, and 8chan is gone. Like it's no longer there.
Yeah, and in fairness, like 4chan was a derivative of another one.
It's called 2channel, which is based on the idea that you had, you had channel 2 where you like play a video game, like on the original Nintendo.
And the entire concept across the board was, this is a place where you can be anonymous, you can post something, and within more or less 24 hours, it's going to disappear. There is no persistence, there is no accountability, there is no traceability. It was specifically designed as a place for people to just come post whatever came to mind and get a reaction.
So I think with 4chan and 8chan, like the posts are persistent, but the whole thing,
they are not.
They're not. Okay.
I mean, so over time that might have changed, but at least throughout the 90s, they're not persistent. It's just whatever board you posted in, it may or may not disappear quickly. So like the random board in 4chan, you could post something and it'd be gone 2 hours later, because the random board was the dumping ground for just whatever drivel you wanted to post. But the other boards, depending on how much activity they had, whatever you posted may or may not fall off pretty quickly. And even in the random board, if you had enough people commenting on a post, it would stick around for a while. But there is no long-term persistence whatsoever unless something since, we'll just say 2000, has changed with the way the site is managed.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. and the way it's presented is it didn't seem like it was a place where posts went away, but how 4chan and 8chan were presented as places where you could go and there were no modifiers to stop hate speech and
oh yeah, there are no moderators whatsoever.
Yeah, it was the Wild West, and I think a lot of what got 4chan notoriety was folks going there to discuss Gamergate.
No. So yes, but prior to that, 4chan was a pretty predominant message board for the collective that identifies as anonymous as well, and that would have predated Gamergate.
Oh yeah, so there's anonymous. The story is not anonymous is not omitted from this story, and
okay,
not at all. So because in the story they actually talk, some of the key folks are that are interviewed, or like actually the topics are the creator of 8chan, the operator of 8chan, an administrator from 8chan. They're all interviewed in this, and it goes into what was happening behind the scenes with the owner, operator, moderator, as to what was going on with how 8chan was created, and the history of these image boards and 2channel as a text board, and how Anonymous plays a role in this and so forth. So yeah, it goes into that kind of detail. And
so I think real quick before we go a little bit further, there is a completely separate documentary called We Are Anonymous that if you want to understand more of the history of how this type of platform can be attractive to a subset of people and not necessarily used to spread conspiracy theories, is well worth looking at as well. And I don't know if anybody streams it currently. It was a crowdfunded documentary at the time, but the name of it is We Are Anonymous. And so I do recommend taking a look at that in addition to this documentary about QAnon, just to understand how a singular type of place on the internet can drive multiple different views and be a kind of springboard or platform for whatever you want it to be, both benevolent and malicious.
I would say the takeaway, without spoiling the documentary, because it is riveting, and the whole time the whole time I was watching it, it felt like, and I know I've said this before, but it felt like a whodunit, and I'm like, but it's a documentary, and maybe I won't find out who done it, but it has a satisfying ending, and it has an infuriating motive.
So let's come back to that. So I mentioned, I don't really know what the idea behind any of this is other than what I've heard. If you were to summarize what it is that makes it infuriating, how would you describe that in a way that doesn't turn someone off from investigating or watching the documentary?
So how the masses are taking in this kind of conspiracy theory, the fact that the conspiracy theorists exist, is not what's infuriating about this. The fact that people are I don't want to say stepping away from their senses, but prone to extreme confirmation bias, or willing to accept outlandish theories as opposed to sound explanations for why things happen in the world that we live in. That's not what's infuriating, because that's something that has always existed, and it's something that's always that will probably always be with us, and we know why that is with us. And we've said it many times here. It's because of we have an education problem in this country. We have an anti-intellectualism problem in this country, and it's not about the schools. It's about what we're doing here. So, I guess. Anyway, I guess the thing that is the part that's infuriating is that at the heart of this, somebody is using disinformation to manipulate people, and it kind of got out of hand. And by kind of got out of hand, it seriously got out of hand.
So I'm glad you phrased it that way, because I was trying to lead in this direction without really knowing if I could. So before I get into what I'm going to get into, have you heard of the birds aren't real movement?
Yes. And
I love those guys.
I was about to say,
shout out
so
to
funny.
This idea.
Yes.
One of the things that is lost today is the understanding of how groups of people arrive at consensus on a topic, right? So we have, in a perfect world, you would have multiple groups of individuals investigating something, and over time, they would lean toward and eventually solidify thought on a particular notion or idea or topic, however you want to phrase it, based on inquiry and repeated results leading to this general consensus. Unfortunately, because of the availability of information from different actors, whether intentionally malignant or not, there's an echo effect when you have someone who disagrees with the consensus. And that echo effect can be stronger or weaker than the actual information presented, depending on a whole number of factors. There's a lot to take in, and I don't want to overly simplify it, but I also don't want to get drug into kind of the minutiae and weeds of how you spread disinformation. What I want to kind of focus in on and point to is that in today's environment, with the spread of information and the access to information that we have, you can have two groups of people that arrive at a consensus that is disparate from one another and never further progress to a unified consensus because of the access to and availability of other influences. The way we typically describe this is you would have the word typically used in scientific literature is propagandist. The only reason I paused is because I know that immediately drives a negative connotation, but that's what it is. It's someone who wants a specific outcome, who can inject just enough confusion or layers of data to keep two general bodies of scientific inquiry from ever moving toward one another. That's a problem. Like, if you don't, even if you have a general mistrust of or skepticism about the scientific process, the fact that you could have scientists in two different camps attempting to understand and analyze a problem never move toward each other because of an actor or a group of actors who have something to gain from injecting doubt into that scientific inquiry, I mean, how can you not view that as a problem? And that's exactly what you have when you have a message board that is very much or very embracive of anonymity, posting something for the sake of creating a reaction. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just even more targeted because you're already focused in on those people who want to believe something different. I feel like that was a lot of talking around for something that I don't know if it actually landed. It all makes sense in my head, and it's all so convoluted. I don't know if I even remotely came across as explaining that in the way that I thought I did.
I kind of think so.
It's one of those things, I'm going to blame it on it being late.
Yeah.
But it's, so, I mean, what we really have been talking about is how do you spread misinformation? And we've been talking about it in a way that doesn't specifically call it out. But that's what it is. It is, I have this idea, I want it to proliferate, and I have this avenue for doing so.
See, I feel like so many times where I feel so many, sincere. Like I feel like where this is a case where disinformation has nothing to do with sincerity. Like you.
Oh, hold on, real quick. I'm going to jump in there. Nothing, and I cannot emphasize this enough. Nothing that you read on a site like 4chan should be taken as sincere. Ever, under any circumstances. Proceed.
I was just going to say kind of the opposite of that, in that, okay, so disinformation is often used is weaponized and often used as a tool for control. But then there are people that are spreading disinformation. So I guess we have two types of entities: those that believe it with sincerity and are spreading that, and those that are using it as a weapon, or are those using it as a weapon but are also sincere about their beliefs of the thing that the disinformation they're spreading. This is where it gets really tricky. Yeah, go ahead.
So it's twofold. I'm going to reference a book that I recently finished. It's called The Misinformation Age. I don't remember the authors off the top of my head, but what it really was attempting to be was a book on how do different methods of spreading information impact things in general. It didn't try to focus in on this is disinformation or anything else. It was more focused on this is how things spread from a logical examination of the types of actors at play. So it read very much like a textbook. It was fascinating from the standpoint of sincerity. It really doesn't come into play. If you want to spread misinformation or disinformation, the easiest way to do so is to sincerely discuss different values and ideals with different people, and get to a group that shares some core set of values, whether it's 1, 2, 12, it doesn't really matter, right? You just have this group of people that agree with you on something, and then you add this other thing. And they may not agree with you on it at face value, but because they agree with you on these other things, and they disagree with the opposing viewpoints on these other things, they're more likely to embrace this one-off, out of the blue oddity because of their agreement with you on other principles. And that's how misinformation spreads. So let's be more concrete with it. If you are quote unquote conservative and believe all life is sacred, there should never be any such thing as an abortion, take your pick, right? Like whatever gamut you want, let's just say you are completely pro-life and abortion should not exist, and that's a view that you hold, and this other person comes along really championing that same viewpoint, and then they add, oh, by the way, there was widespread election fraud in 2020, you're more likely to agree with them and champion that other statement than someone who says, yeah, I agree that life is sacred, but there should be an availability of abortion in certain circumstances. And oh, by the way, there really wasn't election fraud. You're going to discount them because you disagree with an underlying value that you share with this other person. And so you're going to raise that other person up as more of a proliferator of truth, even though there's no basis for what they're saying in any way, shape, fashion, or form. And this is how misinformation spreads. This is exactly why social media is such a dangerous realm of discussion, because people don't know how to determine what is fact versus what is something that is just a emotional attachment to or ploy or response. Like something that is, oh, I agree with that at a glance, and so it must be true type of echo of values.
Yes, or you have because you share core values with somebody, then, it's kind of that shared core value is like vouching for the other ideas and values that person holds, and therefore you're more likely to, or rather you're less likely to think as critically about it and more likely to accept that.
Correct. And this is exactly what we have referred to multiple times as living in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any more textbook than this.
It does. That's true.
And the fact that the vast majority of people can't grasp that difference, I mean, it's scary in and of itself, but it's at what point truly did we lose the ability to look at a statement and say, this is factual versus this is just what I want to hear?
Sometimes I don't even think it's that it's this is what I want to hear. I think that it is people can come to the same conclusions separately. So I'll give an example. It's touching on another conspiracy theory. There's the idea, like there are three major types of pyramids in this world. There's the well-known Egyptian pyramids. There are Cambodian pyramids, and there are Mayan and Incan pyramids. I don't think there are Incan pyramids, but there are pyramids in South America, Central and South America. And so there's this idea that, these monolithic structures that were created in ancient times must have come from the aid of aliens. How could we see the same thing in three different parts of the world where they did not know each other? There was no overlap of communication. How could they possibly build this, etc.? You can go on and on about it must be alien. The logical conclusion is aliens. But really, the more likely conclusion is that people were of the same level of intelligence back then as they are today, and they were the same level of intelligence as each other. They each had the same problem, and they each came up with the same solution for the same problem independently of one another. That doesn't take any stretch of the imagination to believe. Whereas aliens passed on their technology to 3 different civilizations around the world, kind of does. And so people are going to come to the, in just the opposite way, people are coming to the same conclusions with a little help, or their mind works in such a way that this is how they solve the problem, and they come to the same conclusion, and it turns out to be a conspiracy theory. And that's another way that misinformation spreads. Like this thought is really clear in my head, but I'm not sure that I've articulated it well.
I understand well. As you were saying it, the thing that I kept coming back to is what type of structure, what type of large structure to make a statement seems the easiest to build. Is it a big cube, a big sphere, a big triangle? And I think just the mathematical understanding of, I'm going to say physics. It's not appropriate because physics as a discipline was, of course, non-existent at that point in time. But there's an understanding of, I can build this in this way. I can make it big and I can make it last. I don't think it's a stretch of the imagination at all to think a pyramid shape is going to outlast an attempt to make a sphere, which would absolutely require advanced mathematics to be able to do, right?
Well, let's not discount the ancient civilizations. In many ways, they were more advanced than our civilization is today. So they're not dumber. They're just
and I'm not emphasizing that. It's more a matter of recognition that I can create this shape and I can keep it from falling in on itself, and I can do so in an efficient manner.
Right. Well, and it's very possible that they made all of the other shapes as well. It's just that these are the ones that lasted.
That's true. We don't know for sure that they ever tried anything else.
You could go either way on that. And so it's that, coming up with the same idea to solve the same problem is something that happens all the time. And it doesn't require global communication to do that. We now have that. We have that now, but we track things a bit differently than they did back then. So,
and I think it's also important to note that there are differences in the style of construction between the different pyramids as well. Like, even though this particular overall shape was what seemed to be consistent, they're not all made the same way. There are structural differences.
Yeah, and if you were, even though the disciplines, the disciplines of physics and engineering didn't exist, there were physicists and there were engineers because they lived in a world where physics occurs. So there's certainly trial and error. There's certainly things that they can, you can say, oh, well, this makes sense. Like building an upside down pyramid makes way less sense. You don't even have to build a model to know how that's going to be a failure. So, yeah,
and I want to reemphasize I was not attempting to discredit any of the ancient civilizations, because what they achieved was miraculous, or miraculous might be a bit of a stretch. Marvelous, for sure. It's just a matter of putting it into context with the different things that we see now. How could you go from a group of people or a civilization capable of creating a pyramid to a group of people who wants to believe a far-flung theory about something that has no factual or scientific basis whatsoever? And the answer is a combination of misinformation and emotionally driven attachment to an idea. Like, that's how you boil it down to a statement. It's not factual, it's not scientific, it's not investigative. It is an emotional attachment to something that leads to agreement with or attachment to an idea because of that shared value or emotional attachment. That's it.
We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.